everyone, Karen here, and today we're making a stepper card that is 5 inches across and 7 inches tall. Now there are two ways to get to this. One way is if you have larger paper, and the other way is if you have regular 8.5 by 11 paper. So I'm going to show you that first. So if you have 8.5 by 11 paper, I want you to cut two pieces of paper. One 5 by 7 and one 5 by 7 1/4. And the 5 by 7 1/4, I want you to score it at 1/4 inch. And then, after you fold it where you scored it, I want you to glue the two pieces together. And that's going to give you a 5 by 7 10-fold card. That simple. Now, if you have larger paper, because I did buy the larger paper from Paper Dynamics the other day, and so I have larger paper. Now, obviously, when it's this big, it's not going to fit in your trimmer. So I'm going to show you how to work with this. So I'm going to start by scoring it at 7 inches all the way down, because the paper is hanging off the edge of my scoreboard. I'm going to have to flip it over and score it again from the other side, just a little bit, just so we get a full line all the way across, all the way the length of the paper. So now I can fold this over, and I'm going to stick this up here in the corner to make sure it folds nice and straight. I'm going to run my finger down. I'm going to move my scoreboard. I'm going to make sure this is all nice and straight still, and I'm going to just run my bone folder down. Now I'm going to bring my trimmer back in. I'm going to open it up, because now we need to cut it at 5 inches. Now you will get 2 card bases and then some extra paper left over when you cut this. So I'm going to run my finger down the 5-inch little score line here. Make sure it's nice and straight. And I am going to cut all the way up. All right, now I can cut out a second card base if I wanted. So I can cut here, 5, and then come all the way down. Or you can just leave it, and that leaves you that much paper for another project. So now to finish this off, I'm going to bring this to 7. Put my finger in here again to make sure I'm all nice and straight. And I'm going to run the blade all the way down. So now I have a perfect 5 by 7 card base. So let me get, oh no, I need to keep this. All right, so now we need to cut this line here. So what we're going to do, and this doesn't matter which way you made your card base. From here on out, it's the same. So you're going to take your card base, you're going to line it up at the 4-inch line. Make sure you're nice and straight. You are going to go 1 inch from the bottom. So you can start at the 6, press down into your paper, and go all the way up. Okay, that's the only thing we need to cut. So now we just need to put the score lines in there. And I just prefer to use this scoreboard, so I'm going to bring this one back in. So now I'm going to lay this in my scoreboard with the cut in the middle. So the end here is attached. Everybody to see what I'm doing. Flappy end on this side, solid end there on the end. So now we're going to take our scoring tool, and we are going to score down to where we cut it. I know it's black, so it's a little hard to see. At 1 inch, 1.5, 2.5, and 3. So now we have all of our score lines, because it went through both papers. So now we can fold back. Your first fold is going to be a mountain, then a valley, then a mountain, then a valley. Let me get the scoreboard out of the way. So we're going to do the same thing on the back. The first one is a mountain. Here we go. Just get those going. All right, so the first one is a mountain, then a valley, then a mountain, valley, and mountain, just like the front. So now we just need to work all these creases and get them down really good. There we go. We'll just run the bone folder over them a few times. And around here, across the top. Get everybody cooperating and nice and flat. And don't forget the folds on the inside, so you're going to want to lift your card up and go over the ones that are on the inside. All right, now this should stand. There you go. All right, so now that our card base is done, let's talk about how we're going to decorate it. All right, so I'm going to be using the Western set today. So I chose a piece of paper out of the 6-inch paper pad because that will indeed fit on here. I have the little elements with the hat, the horseshoe, and the boots. I have the saloon doors. I have the stamps. I also have a wood grain embossing folder, which I think most of us have. And I have a square nesting die set. Any nesting die set will work. This one is one from a couple years ago. It's Torn Edge Squares number 2. So this is what we're going to be using. So I want to start with the saloon door. So I have a piece of 4 by 7 that I'm going to use to cut this out. Now, before I cut this, I want to put the wood grain on it, because I really don't want to emboss it, because this in here is very fine, and that if you emboss it and cut it, this paper is going to be very weak. I really just want to put the print on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some brown seal water reactive ink, and I am going to cover all over the front of this. And I'm using the colored side simply because when I tested it, I liked that side better. All right, that should be good and covered. Now I'm going to take my 4 by 7, and I'm using craft card here. I am going to put it on the uninked side. I am going to lay this down, and I am going to run this through my machine. Now, instead of using the 2 outside plates, I'm going to use one outside plate, one cutting plate I should say, and then I'm just going to use the plastic shim because I only want to ink this. All right, so let's see what we have. So it did ink on the paper, but when you look at it, it's not embossed. It's still flat, and that's what I wanted, because I didn't want to weaken the paper by embossing it and then have these teeny tiny little spots here. So this is going to work now. So now I have my textured, my printed paper. Let me get my words together here. So now I am going to cut this. And I'm going to bring this up a little bit because I want this line here to be a little thicker, because I lined it up on the bottom with this one, and then I ended up having to cut this part off because it broke. Now, the other thing you can do, you may like it this way, and you may like the top bigger. Absolutely, you can do it. Then just bring this right down to the bottom, and then you'll have a bigger piece on top. Either way, it's up to you. Now, I will say, when we go to put the saloon word on here, you may want a little bit more room on top. So you can do it either way. So just put this on here. I'm going to tape this down because I do not want this moving. And I'm going to run this through. All right, so let's bring this in. Let's see what we have. All right, now I need to poke out these little pieces here. Now you can see the difference. This is the one that I embossed and cut out, and this is the one that I just inked and then cut out. And this one definitely is a lot more stable. This one, this actually tore right here. So this way I'm not in any danger of this tearing. It was just too much stress to put on the paper. So let me get rid of this. All right, so the next thing I want to do with this is I want to emboss the embossing that's on here. All right, so when I ran it through to emboss it, I used my top plate and the bottom plate and just the mat. I didn't put anything else in there, because if you do, you have a tendency of ripping your mat, because that is the voice of experience, because I have ripped a few mats. Let me take this off. So now that this is raised, get that back in there, I'm going to come back with the brown, and I am going to put some ink on there. Now I'm going to use the sponge instead of the bristles, because I have found that when you want to do stenciling or embossing like this, I should just say stenciling, the bristles tend to get underneath and make it a little blurry. So this way, it will be just like this. Let's take a look. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right. All right, so this piece is now done. All we'll have to do is gently fold these saloon doors back, because the card is going to be open. All right. Like that. So we'll put that to the side. All right, so now let's talk about the saloon sign. So when you cut the saloon sign out, it leaves the holes where the letters are. So you need something to back that with. So I have a piece here that is 1/2 by 2 7/8. And that was plenty big enough to cover the letters and not hang off the outside. And that way you're not having to trim around the outside once it's done. And I am going to put a little bit of the brown on this sign. Not anywhere in particular, just kind of flick some color on there, just to give it a little bit, a little aged, a little dirt. Just look a little bit more Western and aged. There we go. That's probably enough. So now I can glue the white onto the back. So now I will just run some glue in between the letters here. And put the white paper on the back. Just cover the letters. You don't have to cover the whole back, just the letters. There we go. So now the saloon piece is done. Here, I'll bring this down so we can see it. So that's what we have so far. All right, so now I don't want the black to show behind the saloon. I want it to look like it's opening up into a room. So what I did is I found this paper. This was in the Home Away from Home pad from a while back. Now what I want to do here is I want to bring in sandstone. And I'm going to take sandstone. Let me put this over here so none of this gets dirty. And I'm just kind of going to go around sandstone just to make this blend in a little bit better. I don't want this all the same color. I want it darker in some places, lighter in others. I want this to look like a wall. All right, we'll do some of that. Now I'll go back in with the brown, which this brown is seal brown. I don't think I said that. And I'm going to go around the edge just a little bit. And this is going to be the inside of my saloon. Let me make it a little darker here on the bottom. There we go. So now that's going to be the inside of my saloon. So let's look and see what we have now. So now I have this 4x7, which is going to cover this whole piece here. Let me go ahead and glue that down. All right, now our saloon door is going to go right on here. Now this is really too skinny to put any foam in here. So you could glue this bottom part down and put some foam on the top to give it some dimension. But this down here, you're going to have to glue that down because it's just too skinny. So that's what I want to do. All right, so let's hope my voice makes it, or else I'll have to stop recording and record this tomorrow. All right. piece of foam across the top here. Now this foam is just 1/16 of an inch thick, and it's a 1/2 inch wide. Just like that. I think that will give it just a little bit of height. Now what I can do, let me grab a brown. Let's see, what brown do I need? This is a good brown. I'm just going to go along the edge here, and I'm just going to darken the foam so it's not as noticeable. There we go, that should do it. And any brown marker will do. Oh, that's going to show a little bit on that side. Let me push that in. Here we go, that should do it. All right, let's pull off all the paper and get this down. Now I am going to glue down this bottom piece. So I'm going to put some glue across here, because that's a pretty fragile piece, so I do want glue down here. So I'm going to line this up on the bottom. You know what? And I will put some glue on here just so it will slip and give me a chance to line everything up. Because it's kind of delicate and I won't be able to pull this off if it's not lined up correctly. All right. Let's get this down here, that down here, and line up the top. There we go. So now we have a little dimension here. I have a little piece of foam sticking out here, so I'll push that back. And I will push that back a little bit more. There we go. All right, so now we have our doors that open and close. Now for inside here, I want to put the birthday greeting in there. So I'm going to use the Put On Your Cowboy Boots and Celebrate. Now that's where I was going to use this nesting die set. I ended up using, because I wasn't sure which was going to fit on there, I used the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th and the 6th one. I cut the 5th one out with white paper, and I'm going to color this here in a second. And I stamped it ahead of time because I wasn't sure if it was going to fit, but it did fit on this one just fine. So the 6th one I cut out, and then I did run it through that same embossing folder. Now what we're going to do now, put these to the side, is I'm going to go back to the ink, but this time I'm going to use sandstone because I want this inside to be a little bit lighter, not so dark. So I'm going to go over this with sandstone and then let that dry. And then I'm also going to take this card, which was white, and you can see I colored the other side a little bit, but I'm going to take the sandstone and go around just to age this paper, just to make it look a little bit more Old West. Just like that. And I'll leave the center a little lighter. Now I do want to color these stars in. So I have this Deco Just Glitter gold pen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over these stars because it's translucent, so it's not going to cover my lines, but it is going to make these stars gold. Another way you could do this is if you just had a gold marker, which I do have this one here, which is gold, but it is translucent, so you could also color it in that way. Either way will work. Depends on how much shine you want it to have. All right, so now these can get glued together. Now I am going to need to keep these flat because they're going to go behind the door here. Just like that. All right, now this will go in the front. We want to make sure we have plenty of glue here because it's not a flat surface, so we want to make sure there's plenty of spaces there that have glue on them. That's going to make contact. Now I'm going to fold these doors back just a little bit more, and I'm going to slide this right in here. Like that. So now we have this. When you open it up, just put on your cowboy hat and celebrate. So now we can put the saloon sign on top. So the saloon sign will go up here, or you can hang it down here a little bit if you want. So that will need foam. And I'm thinking I want this to sit slightly higher than the rest of the card, because when you do have a sign on a building, it does stick out. So I'm going to put foam on here. Let's see. That should do it. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to put the foam on the card first, because that's where I want it to be, right there. Then I'm just going to take my saloon sign, I'm going to line it up so one letter is hanging off each side, and press down. There we go. And that just gives it a little more dimension. So there we are so far. So now we need to do the rest of the decorations here. So let me put this nesting dies away. All right, now let's cut the strips for the stepper part here. So this one here is 4 inches, this one is 1 inch, and this one is 1 inch. So I need 6 inches of paper, and I do want them the same so they will line up. So we have our 6-inch paper. Now I've cut 2 1-inch strips off of here, and I'm trying to decide which one I like better. I am leaning toward putting this one on and putting it on this way, so I can see that stripe going up the side. So what I did is I cut this 1 inch. I took the 6-inch piece of paper, I cut 1 inch off of it. So now I'm going to cut a 4-inch piece of paper, and then I'm going to cut this in half at 1 inch. Like this. I will need to make sure I keep them in order. Alright, so let's move my trimmer out of the way. And let's glue these on. Alright, so we're going to put them this way to where the strip is further out, away from the saloon doors. Yeah, because when you have a stripe like that, you just want to take a moment and make sure you place your stripe where you want it. So I'm going to put this right up against the edge. There we go, like that. Then I have the 1-inch one here. Let me make sure I like the placement here. See, I'm not sure if I'm crazy about that. So how about if we don't put them in order, we put that one in the front. I think I like it that way better. All right, so this one will go in the front. Just going to use my fingers to make sure it's lined up in the corner. And now this piece will go in the middle. All right. Here we go. That's looking pretty good. So now we need to put some more decoration here on the front. All right, so I'm going to bring in the cowboy hat here. Now, I've cut out a few already. This is the one that I was trying to see if I was going to like it or not. And I brought the red in to go along with the red that's in the paper here. That's why I chose a red band. So I cut the die. This is the die cut the way it is. And now there is, just like on the saloon doors, there is an embossing here. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through my machine again. All right, so here's my die. And now it's all embossed. Let's see. There we go. But I want to color that embossing to highlight it a little bit more. So I'm going to lay this down, get it back where it belonged. This time I'm going to bring in the metallic silver. And I am going to use a sponge, because just like before, when you're doing stenciling like this, it's better to use a sponge. And I am going to just highlight the silver. I'm going to make sure I get the buttons all good. And the brim here. And the little buckle that's over here. All right, let's see. Okay, so see, that just highlights it a little bit more. Now you can see it a little bit better. All right, so now let me move this here, put this away. All right, so this is where we're headed. So now we have to cut a piece that's going to go across the back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay this on here. I'm just going to take a pencil and I'm just going to trace around here, here, and across here. Now I don't need a piece that big. I need it to be a little bit smaller than that. Here's my scissors. So I'm going to take my pencil line and I'm going to cut inside the pencil line. I don't want it to stick out from behind the hat. I just want it to cover all the red that's on there. All right, let's see how that is. I just want to cut a little bit more off of here. And there we go. So now I have a piece that will cover all that up. Oh, that is not the one I colored. All right, so let's glue that on. And just lay this down. There we go. Now I'll just give this a second to dry. Okay, so I've given this a minute to dry and I have washed my hands. So now this is going to sit down here. And I want this to look like it's kind of sticking out a little bit, but kind of inside the saloon, because it won't fit on this side. It hits the door. So it does have to go over here on this side. And I'm trying to decide if I want to put that up on foam. I kind of am leaning toward just putting it on the 1/16 foam. Let's see. I can always pull it off. I think I kind of like it like that. I think I'm going to glue this end down and let that end stand upright. I think that's going to give it a little bit more dimension and make it look a little more realistic. So I'm gluing the bottom part of the rim is where I'm putting the glue. I have 1/16 foam on the top here. And I'm going to slide that in here. Making sure the tip of my hat is not hanging off. And there we go. All right, with our doors, our saloon. All right, so now it's time to decide what we want to put on the inside. Now I'm thinking I want to use what's left of this. So let me see what I have. I have a piece that is about 3.5 by 6. So if I cut this down to, let's say, because this is 4 inches, so I probably only want to go 3 inches. So maybe my standard 3 by 5 will fit. Let's see what that's going to look like. Let's see, trying to decide where I want to cut this. So I kind of want to keep my stripes there in the middle. I think I'm going to cut a little bit off of that side and then cut a little bit off of this side. Just to keep my stripes in the middle. All right. So now if it's 5 inches tall, let's see what that's going to look like. So when we open the card up, I think that will be a good size for the inside. So if I have 3 by 5, then I need a 2 3/4 by 4 3/4 piece of white for the inside. All right, so I'm going to cut this to 2 3/4 by 4 3/4. And that will go on here. Yep, I think that will be good. But I want to take the white off of that, the same way I took the white off of the other papers. All right, so let me bring my dirty mat back. I'm just going to fold this in half so I have a clean spot. I'm going to bring in the sandstorm again. And I'm going to go around here. Just to take some of that white away. I want this to look like what's on the front. All right, now I'm going to go around the edge with the seal brown. There we go. I think I'll leave it like that. All right, let me bring the stamping platform. And let's bring in the stamp set and pick something for the inside. I'm thinking this ain't your first rodeo, happy birthday. Because I have put on your cowboy hat and celebrate. So I think that's what I want. So I'm going to put this in the middle and pick that up. Put that over here so I don't get that messed up. And I'm going to bring in my quick dry ink. I think I will leave it just like this. We'll put this to the side. Now let's look at this. Trying to decide if I want to put some black around this. Kind of leaning toward it. So let me grab my quick dry black. And this is the jet black. And I'm just going to line this. Just like that. Yeah, I think that made a difference. That made it look a little more finished. Just like that. Now I could actually, you know what? I'm going to rough up this edge. So I'm going to use the Crafter's Companion edger here. There we go. I think I'm going to bring in my mat one more time. And I'm going to bring the sandstorm back in. Because now that white core of the paper is showing through. So I want to get rid of that white core paper. So I'm just going to ink it with the sandstorm. Yeah, that looks a lot better. There we go. Now the white's all gone, but it still has the rough edge. Okay. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. Let me put a little bit more ink on the top. There we go. That's better. Let's glue these together. And we will be done. All right, bring in our card. And we'll glue this in. I'm thinking about there, because I think I'm measuring it to here. So I'm thinking right about here. Because I'm thinking that's the square. And it will stand up like this. Just like that. So I hope you enjoyed this card. If you did, give me a thumbs up, because that is indeed how YouTube counts everything. And please consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, stay crafty.